Hello, 212 students. So we have about a month left. It's Sunday, November 15th. A month from now, we'll be handing in our final work. So we're in our last push. We're in our poetry genre. This week, we don't have any workshop stories to look at. We're going to start our poetry workshops next week. So take this week to do a couple of things. First, start thinking about the revisions of your short stories. Those will be due during finals week. Very important. Get the prose right, get your themes in there, and develop your characters, push your conflicts. You know what to do. I've written you extensive comments. You've received extensive comments from your classmates. So really put in a thorough revision on your work. Also, I want you to start writing your poems. So I've put together a lecture. Look at it carefully. It talks about some of the basic building blocks of poems. And I've put in a couple of exercises in case you want to get your poetic juices flowing. And I've put in a packet of poetry. Read the poems, read them carefully. You'll start to see what the writers are thinking about and the choices that they're starting to make in putting their words down. Key definition of poetry, I think, is felt experience. We're putting on the page what we feel. It's a very economical art form. Every word, every piece of punctuation counts. So really spend the time to work your poems and refine them and make careful choices about everything. Poetry, by the way, is the only form where you get to choose where even a line ends. So even a line break is important. As I say in my lecture notes, there are two forms of poetry, basically. There's open poetry and closed form poetry. Closed form are those sonnets or haikus even, and those are forms that have many more restrictions in rhyme and meter. Meter is just a fancy way of saying how many beats are in a line. Open poetry is more freewheeling, but that doesn't mean that anything goes. Again, be careful in your choices. I think maybe the best word of advice is to write about something, as in all your writing, that means something deeply to you. If you're invested in the subject of your poem and the feelings of your poem, I have a feeling your poetry is going to come out in a much more honest and resonant way than if you're sort of saying, hey, I have to write a poem for English 212, I'll just jot something down. So care about what you're writing about, and that care will translate. So read the lecture, do some exercises on your own. I won't be collecting those. Start writing your poems. Start thinking about revising your stories so that we're heading into finals week in a good way. And I look forward to seeing your work. As you saw, I've cut down the number of poems you need to write from 3 to 2. Not less work necessarily, but more careful work, I hope. And when you're critiquing each other's poetry, choose one of the two poems. Choose one, critique it, think about the lines, the word choices, the rhythms, and so on and so forth. Okay, so look at the lecture notes. I think that'll give you some real bases, right? Words count, connotation counts. What's connotation? The emotional definition of a word, not the dictionary definition of a word, which is denotation. Think about the words. One of the examples I gave you was the word home versus house. Now I'm sounding strange when I exaggerate it. Home, right? You hear that long O, but it sounds much more warm than if someone says my house, right? That hard S. There's something a little more distant, a little more cold. What do you call your father? Dad, daddy, my old man, pops, papa. That's even more loving. You can hear the differences. So words count, meter counts, rhythm counts, sounds count, where you break your lines count, punctuation counts. Make those careful choices. Okay? So write well, read well. Let's start finishing up strong. I know the pressures of the semester start to weigh us down at this point of the year, but you have about 4 weeks left. So run that final sprint, and I believe everybody will come out with some interesting poems that I am looking forward to reading. I will speak to you soon. Bye-bye.